Hi, welcome back to another video. Adipose tissue is probably the most demonized tissue in the human body, despite it being essential for life as we know it. But as the saying goes, too much of a good thing can quickly become a bad thing. Well, adipose tissue, otherwise known as body fat, is a connective tissue that extends throughout your body. It is found under your skin, subcutaneous fat, between your internal organs, visceral fat, and even in the inner cavities of bones, that is bone marrow's adipose tissue. You can't always feel or see your visceral fat. In fact, you may have a pretty flat tummy and still have visceral fat. That is sometimes called TOFI, or thin outside, fat inside, which is used to describe lean individuals with a disproportionate amount of fat stored in the abdomen. Well, only an expensive scan can measure how much belly fat is hiding in you, but your doctor won't order a test just for that reason. And in today's video, we're going to discuss the various locations that adipose tissue can be stored in the body, why too much visceral fat is so dangerous, and how do you know how much visceral fat do you have in both the clinical setting and in the comfort of your own home. If you like this video and find this useful, please click the like button. Please leave your comments below and share this video. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of my future weekly video release. Please also subscribe to this channel. This is completely free of charge, but will help the channel to grow. Thank you. Well, too much of any body fat is bad for your health. But compared to the fat that lies just underneath your skin, that is the subcutaneous fat, the visceral kind is more likely to raise your risk of serious medical issues. Heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, and high cholesterol are some of the conditions that are strongly linked to too much fat in your trunk. Researchers suspect that visceral fat make more of the protein called cytokines, which can trigger low-level inflammation, a risk factor for heart disease and other chronic conditions. Cytokines are signaling protein that help to control inflammation in your body. They allow your immune system to mount a defense against microorganisms that enter your body. But excessive cytokines can lead to inflammation and conditions like autoimmune disease. It also produces a precursor to angiotensin, a protein that causes blood vessels to contract and blood pressure to rise. Subcutaneous fat is found in the hypodermis, which is just deep to the skin, or the epidermis, and the dermis. It is made up with both white and brown adipose tissues. Now, this brown fat has some pretty incredible thermogenic properties, and it's a type of body fat that keeps you warm when you get cold. It also stores energy and helps your body to burn calories. It is activated in cold temperatures. And white fat being primarily for energy storage as well as insulation. So white adipose tissue stores excess energy as triglyceride, whereas brown adipose tissue dissipates stored energy as heat. And visceral fat, on the other hand, is found inside and surrounding the internal organs of the body. It helps to protect the organs as well as to store and provide energy for them to use. And of course, we all have visceral fat, but having too much of it is dangerous. The question is, how do we know how much visceral fat do we have? Well, there is no way to know where and how much visceral fat is hidden in your body without expensive imaging tests. You are unlikely to ever need those. Examples of this include a DEXA scan, which stands for Dual Energy X-ray Absorbed Geometry. It is actually designed to measure bone density and diagnose osteoporosis, but it is very useful as well at determining body fat percentage. But it does come with a small doses of radiation, which is why some individuals prefer to just use an MRI, which is also very good at quantifying overall body fat percentages. So, if your doctor orders a CT scan or an MRI test to check for other medical conditions, they can also get a detailed picture of your visceral fat. But even without these expensive imaging tests, it is still possible to estimate the amount of your overall body fat or your overall body composition. One of these methods is to use the skin fold calipers by pinching your subcutaneous fat. You can also provide a rough estimate of your visceral fat by measuring the size of your waist. Simply wrap a tape measure around your waist over your belly button without sucking in your stomach. Women should aim for a waist that is less than 31.5 inches, and 35 inches or more is a sign of visceral fat. In men, should aim for less than 37 inches. More than 40 inches is a sign of visceral fat. But this is a crude too, especially if you are a very big person. And if you're of Asian descent, The benchmark for visceral fat drops to 31.5 inches for women and 35.5 inches for men. And you can also estimate your visceral fat through observing your body shape, because where your body tends to store fat can offer you a clue. Well, if you're an apple with big trunk and slimmer legs, it often can mean more visceral fat. This body shape is more prevalent among men. Women are more likely to be pears with bigger hips and thighs. Research shows that upper body fat is more dangerous to your health, which might be one reason why women usually live longer than men. And next we have hydrostatic weighing, which is where an individual is submerged in water and then has to forcibly exhale all the air from the respiratory system while simultaneously being weighed. This was one of the most accurate ways to measure body fat until more advanced methods such as CT scans and MRI scans were developed. And then you have bioelectrical impedance, which takes advantage of the fact that electricity moves differently through water than it does through fat. A weak electrical current is sent through the feet. Depending on the speed in which the current travels through your body, it can help to determine hydration levels as well as body fat percentage. Which method you should use really depends on what you're looking for. You see, these are just a few examples of the available methods, and as you can already tell, they are going to come with their own pros and cons. Calipers, for example, don't measure visceral body fat, but that is not necessarily a bad thing, because those who are using calipers are using it because they want to know how much subcutaneous fat there is. And DEXA scans, for example, like I just mentioned, weren't designed to measure body fat. They are about bone density, which means the numbers they provide surrounding body fat are not 100% accurate, which means for some individuals, it is not worth the time and the money that goes into it, as well as the small doses of ionizing radiation that comes with it. Instead, they would rather lean on more convenient methods such as bioelectrical impedance. Well, at the end of the day, it really comes down to two questions. What do you want to know and why you want to know it? So, are you a bodybuilder looking to find the ins and outs of your own personal fat deposition? Or are you into longevity and just looking to accumulate as much data as possible so that you can live as long as possible? Or are you a postmenopausal woman that worries about osteoporosis? Or are you overweight and you just want to know how much fat you have and where it is located? Depending on the individual and the situation, some of these methods make a whole lot more sense than others. But I believe that everyone should at least know the BMI, which stands for Body Mass Index. Although the results can be misleading at times, especially when you have a lot of muscle tissues. But put that aside for the moment, BMI is the most commonly used metric for determining height-weight proportionality. Or in other words, are you underweight, normal weight, overweight, or obese? To figure out your BMI, you simply divide your weight in kilograms by your height in meters. You then get a number that can fit within specific ranges. Anything under 18.5 is considered underweight. Between 18.5 to 24.9 is normal, and anything between 25 to 29.9 is overweight. And anything above is considered as obese, with even multiple levels of obesity beyond that. Over 35 is extremely obese. But the problem with BMI is that it does not discern between bone density, muscle mass, fluid volume, air in your lungs, and body fat. So, a bodybuilder with considerable lean muscle mass will likely appear as obese on the body mass index, despite that clearly not being the case. But 80 to 90% of the human population, the BMI is actually a relatively good indicator of overall health and body composition. Well, it is far from the best method out there, but I view its utility in the same way that I view, say for example, measuring your body weight. It is better to track something rather than nothing at all. And if you track it over a long enough timeline, you can help to determine the trend. And then if you pair that with a good exercise routine, yearly blood tests, and good healthy diet, and other things beyond that, like good stress management, it will give you a relatively decent understanding of where you stand health-wise. But I want to be very clear, this is the bare minimum. But when you compare it to how many people are tracking nothing at all, it is pretty good, all things considered. Now we know what fat is and how you can measure it. Let's now discuss the point in which it becomes life-threatening. You can see that there's a lot of structures and organs inside the thoracic and abdominal cavities. So when we are talking about visceral fat, what we are really talking about is the fat that accumulates inside these cavities. And as you can probably already see, the problem here is that there's only so much space available. So the more visceral fat that accumulates, the worse the situation will get. And we have already mentioned at the beginning of this video that too much visceral fat is associated with a lot of health conditions. Well, everyone should have some visceral fat. For example, we have the greater omentum. It consists of adipose tissue and other loose connective tissues. And this is the largest mesentery tissue by length and width. And this is a fatty apron that drapes over your small intestine. And it is loaded with blood vessels, immune cells, and it is a really amazing piece of tissue. The liver itself stores fat as well as glucose in the form of glycogen. And if you have too much fat, you get fatty liver disease. You even get fat around your heart, which surprises a lot of people. The heart is surrounded by a tissue called the pericardium. But if we remove that, you can actually see fat capsule on top of the myocardium of the heart itself. And the fat layer around the heart is called the epicardial adipose tissue. The point I'm making is that there are plenty of visceral fat in the body for even healthy individuals. The problem isn't having it. The problem is having too much of it. Research suggests that the amount of visceral fat that is inside your body is 10% of your total fat percentage. So, let's say if you're using a biometrical impedance scale at home and it tells you that you have 20% body fat, well, 2% of that would be your visceral fat. For people aged 20 to 39, women should be targeting between 21 to 32% of body fat. Men should be targeting between 8 to 19% of body fat. For those aged 40 to 50, women should be targeting between 23 to 33% of body fat, while men should be targeting between 11 to 21% of body fat. Women have higher body fat percentage than men because of the effect of estrogen on the body. But there is also an association between low level of testosterone and obesity, and males with low testosterone levels are more prone to visceral fat accumulation, which is what gives them the typical beer belly shape. In fact, measuring your waist to hip ratio is one of the easiest ways you can do at home to give you an idea how much visceral fat you might have. All you do is to measure the narrowest part of your waist, which is typically just above the belly button, and then you are going to measure the widest aspect of your hip. You then divide the waist circumference by your hip circumference, and this gives you your waist-hip ratio. And according to the World Health Organization, a ratio of 0.95 in males and 0.8 in females equates to less risk for all the different conditions we mentioned earlier, such as cardiovascular disease and metabolic syndrome. Let me finish by making this absolutely clear. The exact point in which body fat becomes life-threatening is very difficult to quantify because it depends on variables like your age, sex, or even your genetics. But generally speaking, if your total fat percentage is above normal ranges, then it is very likely that your visceral fat, which is the most dangerous type of body fat, is also in an unhealthy range. So the higher your total body fat percentage, the higher your visceral fat percentage. The more likely you're going to develop one of those life-threatening conditions such as type 2 diabetes, or maybe even you will suffer a stroke. While determining your overall body composition is not 100% accurate, easy or cheap, tracking even basic information such as your BMI or your waist to hip ratio can be extremely useful in determining some kind of trend that you can then act upon to bring you back into those normal ranges. Well, the above is just an oversimplification of an immensely complicated subject, so please seek further advice from the relevant medical professionals. Until next week, take care. Thank you for watching until the end. If you like this video, please click the like button. Please leave your comments below and share this video. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of my future weekly video release. Please also subscribe to this channel. This is free of charge but will help the channel to grow. If you're interested in improving your health and fitness or losing weight, if you suffer from or wish to prevent back pain, please take a look at my book, which is now available from Amazon worldwide. Thank you.